welcome to your reading. So I will go ahead and apologize if you hear more background noise than what's normal. I didn't turn off, usually I turn off the heat just because I don't really need it that much and it makes, just noise in the background. Today, however, it's rainy and really cold. And I also have the dogs in the house. Sometimes, they like to go outside and I just let them chill out there while I'm filming, or they go upstairs, but they're kind of babies when it's raining outside and they like to be close to me. And yeah, obviously I'm not going to make them chill out there in the rain. So you may hear more noise than normal. And yeah, and speaking of that, the heat's coming on, so you may start to hear that now. All right, so yes, how will your future spouse approach you when dating? How will they romantically pursue you? We have the Justice card, we have the Devil, we have the Nine of Swords, and we have the Four of Pentacles here. And this deck, obviously, it's using spades for swords and using the diamonds for the pentacles. Okay. This is actually quite interesting. I feel like there's something about your future spouse where they want to put in the effort. They want to make that known to you. However, I don't know if you have directly told them this, or if they have just sensed this about you, or if they have dealt with this, in past relationships. And so I'm not entirely sure. Maybe we'll get more clarity when we get into your oracle. But I feel like they don't want you, yes, they're putting in effort and they are trying to, impress you a little bit, but they don't want you to feel like it's transactional. So they're the type of person, they want to take you out on a nice date. They want to treat you. They want to pay for everything. However, they don't want you to feel like you owe them something because of that. So I feel like they're really mindful about it. They're very careful not to make it into a big deal. And they don't want you to feel like, okay, because they spent X amount of money on it, now I have to go home with them. Or, they spent X amount of money on the date, and so, now I need to spend an equal amount of money on them on our next date. It's not like that. They want to treat you. They want to show you that they're serious about you. And I think for them, planning out a thoughtful date, putting money into it, making sure you all have a nice time, maybe bringing you a gift, on the first date, that kind of thing is important to them. But they don't want it to be like, you owe me something or you're indebted to me. And I think especially they want to make sure that it's funny because it's on one hand, I'm trying to win you over, right? But by showing you that I'm serious, by showing you that I care, by putting in this effort because you deserve it, because I'm into you, because I really like you. But I don't want you to like me just because of me spending X amount of dollars, or because I took you to this really nice restaurant. And so it's kind of funny. It's well, they don't want you to think that they're cheap. They don't want you to think that they're lazy or that they don't care. So yeah, they're going to spend that money. Yeah, they're going to put in that effort. And you can plan out a thoughtful date without spending a lot of money. However, I feel like for your future spouse, they think in those terms. For them, a nice date, a thoughtful date is, I scouted out this really nice restaurant. And so, or I took you to this expensive play kind of thing. My husband's a bit like this. He's kind of a snob, he, grew up with more money than me, and he wasn't rich or wealthy, but I feel like they were solidly middle class, upper middle class. Everyone has a different idea of what middle class is. Whereas I grew up poor. And so, I'm like, why can't we go to Texas Roadhouse on our date night? And he's like, we're not going to Texas Roadhouse. What is wrong with Texas Roadhouse? They have really good rolls and the cinnamon butter that I like. And since I've been pregnant, I normally don't care about steak, but since I've been pregnant, I've been craving steak. It must be like I need red meat for the iron or something. But yeah, so like it may be something like that where maybe he's a little bit snobby, he turns his nose up, or it just doesn't occur to him that you can have a really nice, thoughtful date where it doesn't have to be expensive. Because I'll be honest, like I really feel like he's spending quite a bit of money, or she is spending quite a bit of money. You could be asking about a man or a woman, doesn't matter, but I really feel like there's that disconnect in their mind where it's like, yes, I want to spend this amount of money, I want to show you the effort, but I don't want you to like me just because I have money, or just because I'm spending a lot of money on you. It's like, well, then stop spending so much money. I don't know. I'm just telling you what I'm seeing in the cards, okay? And now we have jet noise. I do feel like they're quite nervous. I feel like they don't want to mess it up. I feel like they're quite anxious. And so I think that's also like them trying to compensate for their nervousness. So, I am planning and taking you out on this really nice, expensive date. I'm buying you these gifts, whatever. Maybe that will make up for the fact that I'm really nervous and I'm anxious and I kind of feel off my game a bit. And I think normally your future spouse is quite confident, quite flirtatious with this Devil card, but with you, they just feel thrown off their game. And I think it's because there's some part of them that senses that you're important, that you matter, that you may be the one. Especially with Justice here, they could be looking at you like, this person could be the one. This person could be the one that I marry. And I also feel like your, sorry, the cat just ran by. I think it shook the camera. I also feel like your future spouse is quite traditional. And so for them, buying you a gift is probably going to look like jewelry or flowers, expensive chocolates, like Godiva or something. They just are very, I think, traditional in that kind of way. And, when they get to know you better, they may buy you things that are more in alignment with like your personal interests and your hobbies and what you like. But, when they don't know you that well, they're like, well, everyone likes jewelry, or everyone likes a nice watch, or everyone likes flowers, everyone likes chocolate, that kind of basic stuff. But it's all going to be high quality. We're like 10 minutes in with so many interruptions. I'm gonna have fun editing this. Give me grace, y'all. Give me grace. All right, with this She Who Surprises, Surprise, Discovery, and Revelation card, this is how your future spouse is viewing you in the very beginning. I'm going to call it of your courtship because it feels like a very traditional courtship. And then this Avenger card, desire to balance the scales of justice, righteousness on behalf of society or oneself. It's funny that we have this balance the scales of justice card here, and then you also got the justice card in your tarot. So I like to see that continuation of that theme in your cards. This Avenger card is representing the archetype that your future spouse is presenting. So this is their energy, and the She Who Surprises card is how they are viewing you. So I think from their perspective, you're a little bit more of a wild card. I think that there's something so unexpected about you. I think that they have you pinned in their mind as being one way. And then as they get to know you, they're like, oh, wow, there's so much more to group one than I realized. So you may be someone who has maybe, if you look at your birth chart, you have a Venus or a Mars or even a moon sign that is very different than maybe your sun or your rising. And for me, I'll use myself as an example. In my birth chart's pretty scattered anyway. But my rising sign, my ascendant, is in Capricorn. So that's earth sign energy, real grounded. But then my moon is in Gemini. My sun is in Leo and my Venus is in Cancer. Who is she? Like, who am I? I'm all over the place, right? So many different elements being represented, modalities, all that good stuff. And so you may find that in your birth chart, or it may be just a situation where you're someone that people tend to misjudge. Your first impression is a lot different than your actual personality, or you're someone who's slow to warm up. Maybe you're more introverted, or, until you get to know somebody, you don't really open up that much. And so people just kind of have to guess and fill in the blanks for themselves kind of thing. Or maybe you're just like that with dating. And so I think it's really exciting for them to kind of have to continuously, they're showing me like a Rubik's Cube, but kind of continuously reorient themselves, or like a kaleidoscope where there's all these moving pieces and the image keeps changing as you turn it. And so it's something like that. I think they're very intrigued by you, but I also feel like that makes them nervous. That's contributing to that anxiety of like, I can't figure out group one. And so that makes me nervous, because how do I sort of romantically pursue, or how do I impress group one when I don't feel like I have a firm understanding of exactly who they are and what they're wanting? And, I think that will go away as they get to know you better, as you get to know them better, and things feel more solid. But I think it just feels, there's like a delicacy to the matter, like I have to handle this with care because I don't have group one all figured out. And now with this Avenger card here, I do feel like if you have dealt with transactional relationships in the past, and it doesn't just have to talk about romance, I mean, this can happen a lot in friendships as well, where, if someone does something for you, or they offer to do something for you, instead of it being like, oh, wow, that was very kind, thank you, it's more of like, well, I did that for you, so you better do something for me. And they hold it over your head. I always hate that. If you offer to do something kind for me, don't remind me about it 2 years from now. Like if I said thank you, if I expressed gratitude, don't hold it over my head. You offered to do it. Nobody asked you to do it. If you didn't do it from the kindness of your heart and you were hoping to get something out of it, don't expect me to get on my hands and knees and say thank you 50 times. I already said thank you. I already expressed gratitude. But some people are like that. They want to hold it over your head for forever. And I think it's unfortunate when that happens in families too. I had someone in my family, and it always felt like they were keeping score. If someone did something nice for another family member, they hated it. And they would be like, well, you did so-and-so for, let's just say Jonathan. I don't have a Jonathan in my family. You did so-and-so for Jonathan. You never did that for me. You did this for Jonathan. You didn't do anything for me. And it's like, why can't you just be happy for Jonathan? Like, why does Jonathan have to struggle? Like, why can't Jonathan get something nice? What does Jonathan getting something nice have anything to do with you? And that was always so weird to me. And I think sometimes you see that in families too, where if like my mom, for example, had me very young, but then she had my brother later in life. So we have a very large age gap between us. He's 11 years younger than me. And it was always like, he had a better childhood than me financially because there was more money, there was more stability. Whereas when she had me, she was 19 and she was a single mom. So it was a very different dynamic. But I never resented my brother, and I wanted him to have a better childhood than I had because, no child should have that big of a financial burden on them or to feel like they are the financial burden. And so I was happy that he got to have things that, I didn't get to have. He got to have that stability that I didn't get to have. And so maybe you dealt with something like that in your family, but just these transactional relationships, relationships should be based upon a bond and mutual love and respect and all this stuff, not what can you do for me? And, well, I did this for you. And, you know, it shouldn't be all of this, you know, things should be balanced, yes, as best as they can be, but it shouldn't always be transactional. You should be doing things from a place of love because you want to do them. And the other person should express gratitude, and it should be, you know, somewhat of a balance of give and take, right? And so your future spouse may be coming in and trying to correct that pattern, trying to break that pattern, you know, of not having you feel like people just take and take and take from you and never give anything, or if people do give you something, they hold it over your head for forever, right? And it could also be, again, signifying that, I think especially because your future spouse is coming through and honestly kind of seems like they have money, you know? So maybe they have dealt with people in the past romantically who were just interested in their money, or, you know, tried to get as much financially from your future spouse as they possibly could. And so your future spouse is, I think, mindful of that. But I think ultimately it's kind of like that Two of Cups energy, where your future spouse really wants to create a dynamic with you where you guys do have, as much as one possibly can, an equal balance of give and take. You both are, you know, contributing something to the connection, and I think your future spouse is going to be really appreciative. You know, so maybe there's some sort of financial disparity between you two. Maybe he has or she has way more money than you do. And your future spouse is saying, I don't mind paying for all the dates, but, you know, they just, even if they are paying for everything, I don't feel like they would make you feel like you're indebted to them, because they are appreciating the value that you are adding to their life. You know, your support, your friendship, your companionship, and eventually your love, right, is going to be something of value to them. I will also say this Devil card is calling to me again. I do feel like your future spouse, I would say gift giving is a big love language for them, but I would also say physical touch is also a big love language for them. I think that they just want to feel close to you. And I also feel like there's someone who works a lot, and so they really value that quality time that they get to spend with you when you two are dating. And that's how you'll be able to tell that they're really into you, is that they make room in their schedule to see you. But I also feel like they're going to find little ways to touch you, you know, like touch your back, touch your arm, hug you, you know, when you're in the early stages of dating. In a respectful, kind of gentlemanly or ladylike way. But yeah, I do feel like physical touch, is something that they really enjoy. Okay, and now we have passion and future. So with these two cards, what I was asking is essentially, what will your future spouse love most about you or appreciate most about you in the early stages of dating? So they love your passion. And with the future card here, it picks right back up on what we were talking about with justice, and even that Nine of Swords, where we were talking about part of why they feel off their game or they feel more anxious is because early on in the stages of dating or getting to know you, they feel like you could be the one. And so with the future card here, they love that they can see their future with you. They love that they can imagine a life with you. They love that they see that as a real possibility with you. And I mean, you may also be someone who's really comfortable with talking about the future. Maybe you are really goal-oriented and you're open to discussing what you're wanting in the future, and you're really clear about your wants, needs, and desires, in terms of your love life. And I think they really appreciate that. They appreciate your openness and your willingness to communicate and assert your needs and your wants and your goals for the future, and how that could potentially affect, your connection together. Even in terms of like your career or whether you want children, all that stuff, goes into building a life with somebody, because you want to make sure your goals and your needs and your wants and your expectations, all of that, you want to make sure all of that is aligned. And that's so special when you find someone that you connect with, that you love, that you have all of the feelings for, and then you find out what they want and what they envision for the future lines up with what you want. I mean, speaking from personal experience, it's like magic. It's like a needle in a haystack kind of moment, like finally here we are, and it feels amazing. And I think that's exactly, how your future spouse feels about you. So it's really good to get this card because that tells me you two must be on the same page. And I know we're talking about your future spouse, but people get married all of the time to people who want different things than them. And I think that's why a lot of people, unfortunately, get divorced, because they're thinking the other person is going to compromise, the other person's going to change their mind. How many couples break up because one person wants kids and the other person doesn't? One person wants to live in the city, one person wants to live in the country, one person wants to travel, one person never wants to leave their hometown, and they keep thinking the other person's going to change their mind or give in. And even if they do, resentment can build. And so I think that can cause problems too. So the fact that you all don't have that issue really speaks to the long-term stability of your marriage, which is, not what we're asking about, but good to see. Good to see. Okay. And honestly, I'm going to use my reality TV example, but it's making me think of Married to Medicine, Jackie and Curtis. Jackie is unable to have children, and she shared, her journey, and I can't imagine how difficult that is, being an OB and not being able to have children. And then she works a lot. I think, her business, her practice kind of is like her child, because she doesn't have that for herself. And I believe it's been a while since I've seen, the past seasons, but I think that she wanted to adopt, and her husband Curtis was like, no, you work so much. I don't think that you would have time in your schedule. We don't even have time to spend together. And so it created resentment and friction and conflict in their marriage. And then, he ended up having an affair. And so then there's even more conflict, as a result of that. They're still together as far as I know. But you see how much strife that can cause in a marriage when people don't have the same goals or the same view for, what they want in the marriage. And so, thankfully, y'all are avoiding all of that. Now, with the Passion card, I think that they just really appreciate your hobbies, your interests, what you're into, even if it's totally different than what they're into. Hearing your excitement about it, hearing you talk about it, how your eyes light up. I think there's something really magnetic when someone talks about something that they love. Even if it's something you don't even remotely care about, if someone is super passionate and excited and happy and their face just lights up when they talk about stamp collecting, you may not even care one little bit about a stamp, but I think it's super engaging when someone really cares about something and they speak about it with such gusto. That word is weird. I've never used the word gusto. It's coming through though. So much gusto that you yourself start to get excited too. And I know that I've done that. Like, as excited as I get about tarot and astrology, a lot of my friends will, kind of be like, I don't really believe in all that. And then the next thing I know, they're asking me, hey, what does this mean in someone's birth chart? Or like, hey, can you do a reading for me? I thought you didn't care. It's one of those things where excitement is contagious. Your passion is contagious. And I also feel like this talks about your physical attractiveness, your beauty. You spark feelings within them. You, I think, are physically attractive. What's the word I'm trying to, magnetic. There's something about your physical beauty, attractiveness that is very magnetic to them. And I think there's also a romanticism to you as well. I think you're someone who does really well in romantic partnerships. I don't care if you've been single your whole life. That can still be true. You just haven't found it out yet. But you are someone who just makes a really good partner. You know, some people do better on their own. Some people are very independent, and other people really are just good with relationships. And I think even in friendship and as a family member, you're really good at relationships. Even if the people around you don't appreciate you, that doesn't change the fact that you are really good at relationships. Okay, and for your final cards here, we have cycle, karmic cycles, ending past patterns. We have healing, difficult self-truths, acknowledgement, inner work. We have leave, walk away, goodbye, don't look back. And we also have abundance, let go, conjure, and craft. I really love your Affairs of the Heart Oracle. These 3 cards here, I love the story that they're telling me. I feel like your guides want to come through and tell you specifically, listen, this person, this future spouse who's coming into your life, they are ending a karmic cycle for you. They are representing a break in you having these karmic connections. And you may have had karmic connections not just with love, but maybe with friends and family too. But it's like we're breaking this pattern. We're breaking this pattern where people abandon you with this leave card, or where you're forced to walk away because someone's behavior is so bad. You're like, this isn't sustainable. Like, I can't continue to exist in this dynamic where, I'm just being disrespected. And so I feel like this entire process of dating them and getting to know them and being treated in the way that you deserve, and having someone care enough to put in the effort and show you that they're serious and genuinely try to get to know you, it's going to be very healing. They're going to make you feel safe. I think there's something about this person that just feels very safe and solid and secure. And they quite honestly seem like there's someone who have their life together. They seem like they have their affairs in order. And I think that can be really helpful if you have a fear of abandonment, or if you have just experienced a lot of karmic short-lived connections, or connections that kind of descended into chaos. Because if someone's life is chaotic and they're trying to bring you into their life, you're going to be in the chaos, like it's going to start to bleed into your connection with them, because the rest of their life is chaotic. And so the fact that your future spouse is so stable and secure and responsible and has their affairs in order, it's very easy for them to incorporate you into their life, versus if their life was chaotic and they were acting like an adult and they didn't have their life together, their ducks in a row, it would be a lot. And with this abundance card, they just see a very fruitful future with you. And I think that they really hold you in high regard. And I think you can tell that even early on when you two are dating and they are approaching you, because they are approaching you, I'm hearing, with the respect and the reverence that you deserve. They treat you like you're something precious. They treat you like you're something special. They treat you like they don't want to lose you. And, I think that's why we had that 9 of Swords in the very beginning, why they feel anxious, why they feel off their game, and it's because they're nervous, like they don't want to mess it up. They don't want to lose you. And you kind of see like how it looks like there's a wolf or a dog in the corner here of the card. And then in the upper right-hand corner, we have this owl. So it's like they're looking up at you and calling to you, and they just see you as something that could easily slip through their fingers if they're not careful. They're looking at you like you must have a lot of options, you must have a lot of people interested in you, because they think you're a catch. And I do think that as they get to know you, they're quite surprised by how wise you are beyond your years. You have a lot of wisdom, and I think that comes from those karmic cycles, because with every karmic cycle you learn a lesson. So it doesn't surprise me that you would come across as quite wise, you know, once someone gets to know you better. And I think that could be part of the surprise too, you know, that you have been through what you've been through. It may be quite shocking to them, you know, when they hear your story and everything that you've experienced, because maybe you don't lead with a sort of jaded personality or a cold personality. Maybe you seem optimistic in some ways. And if you've had real hardships in your life, I think that optimism is hard won. And it would be surprising, like, wow, you've been through that and you still have hope. That's amazing. All right, we're going to end your reading now just with some Astro Dice messages here. So we'll roll the dice 3 times just so we can kind of get a guess at your person's sun sign, maybe just dominant energies in their chart. So maybe they have a sun sign that's in a different sign than we pick up, but maybe they have their moon, their Mars, their Mercury, all in Aquarius, and that's the sign we get. So just take what resonates. Group 1 zodiac signs for their future spouse. We have Taurus energy. I really feel like they come across as a Taurus because we talked about them liking luxury. We talked about them being hardworking. Taurus is very ambitious. Taurus works hard to play hard, though. I mean, they aren't quite a workaholic, you know, the way maybe like a Capricorn would be, but they enjoy the finer things in life, and so they have expensive taste. They definitely like to eat. Good food, good company, good memories, like that's Taurus, you know. They're all about the sensual pleasures, the earthly pleasures, because they're fixed earth, you know. They're here for a good time. But I love Taurus energy, and Taurus is fixed earth, so it's very solid, very stable, predictable, reliable, dependable energy. Okay, and we have Gemini here. Now this is a completely different sort of energy here. It's immutable air, but I feel like Gemini is speaking to their usual capacity for smooth talking. I feel like usually they're very charming and charismatic, but with you they're just off their game. But I do think you two will have a lot of great intellectual conversations together. Gemini always has something interesting to say, you know, and I think especially if we talk about like niche interests, that's Gemini and energy. Like they know a little bit about everything. Geminis are really engaging to talk to. And then we have Pisces here. So now we have water, so all over the place. But I do always say, though, I feel like Pisces is the Gemini of the water signs, but I definitely feel like Pisces is speaking to the fact that your future spouse also has a romantic side and a dreamy side, and they're probably going to be daydreaming about a future with you very early on. Okay. All right, that concludes your reading. I hope it resonated. I hope it brought you some comfort. Please consider liking, commenting, sharing, or subscribing. Hitting the notification bell lets you know whenever I upload. The easiest way to support the channel is to watch the ads. I know they can probably be a little bit annoying, but you can always mute them and just have them on in the background. So I really appreciate anyone who does that as well. I also want to say a huge thank you to everyone who has watched the ads already, been a regular viewer, donated on Venmo, tipped with SuperThanks, or just commented or liked a video. It means the world to me and to Miss Gracie, of course. I'm wishing everyone the best as always. Please take care, and I hope to see you in my next reading. welcome to your reading. Like I was telling the first group, you may hear more background noise than you typically do. I have all of the animals inside with me, and I have the heat on because it's raining outside and it's really cold today. And when it's storming like that, the dogs like to be close to me. So if you hear more noise in the background, so sorry about that. Now, I will say, looking at your tarot here, with this particular deck, there are no Knights pages. So there are Jacks and there are Kings and Queens, but no Page Knight with this particular deck. Okay, so we have the Jack of Spades or the Jack of Swords. We have the Seven of Clubs or the Seven of Wands, and we have the Jack of Clubs or the Jack of Wands to start us off. Okay, your future spouse is coming in hot. Okay, they are approaching you in a lot more of a direct way, I think, than Group 1's future spouse. They are just very open and clear about the fact that they are very much into you, and they have the hots for you, and they think you're beautiful, or they think you're attractive, they think you're handsome, and they like what they see. They want to get to know more. They're very forward, very bold, blunt about it, very flirtatious, and I don't think you're making it easy for them. I don't. And maybe it's because they're coming on strong and that makes you pull away, or maybe, you haven't had the best of luck with dating, and so maybe you feel a bit jaded, or you feel kind of over it, or you just went through a breakup, or whatever. You know how sometimes you get where you're like, do I even want to be dating? Do I even want to be trying? Maybe you're just kind of over the whole thing. Or it could be some sort of, extenuating circumstance where you're like, is this a good idea? Because maybe you work together or you have mutual friends in common. Could be something like that that's giving you reservation. It could just be, something about your past. It may have nothing to do with your future spouse, but I think that they have a very big personality. I think that they are someone that is a bit extroverted. I think that they're very confident. I think that they have a sense of bravado, and I think that they just have this certainty. They just have this certainty about them. And, some people are bold. Some people are bold. Some people don't care, saying how they feel. And I think if you're asking about a man, sometimes men have, I think, more freedom to say these things. I think sometimes, and this is sort of a gender stereotype, but I think sometimes in the dating world, a man can say what he wants, but if a woman says what she wants, maybe she's viewed as clingy, or she's viewed as trying to rush someone to the altar, or, she's viewed as, God forbid, crazy. But, sometimes that happens. If a woman says, I want to get married, I want to have kids one day, all of a sudden the man's real skittish, and he thinks that she means she wants to marry him tomorrow, and that's not what she said. So it could be something like that that's going on, but I just feel like, your future spouse is just very direct. They're into you, they want to get to know you, they want to date you, they like what they see. And I do think that they are very physically attracted to you. But they are, I think that Group 1's future spouse was putting in a lot of effort into the dates and spending money and that kind of thing. With you all, I feel like we're picking up more on the talking stage. I don't feel like we're getting information about the date yet, or what it will be like to date them. Because I feel like there's maybe a little bit of a longer talking period with you two before you actually go out on a date, which makes me think maybe you meet this person online, like on a dating app, or maybe there's some kind of situation that kind of determines that. When I first started talking to my husband, he was deployed. We did meet on a dating app though, and he was deployed. So, obviously I wasn't going to fly to the Middle East to go on a date with him. So we waited to meet each other until he got back from his deployment. And so, it could be something like that, if they're in the military, where you guys have to talk for a while because they're far away, or this is long distance and you meet online through social media or something, or like I said, a dating app. And so, you know, you're not going to fly or drive really far to go out on a date with somebody until you're sure, yeah, you're interested, you know? Or, you know, you just can't get off work, you know, whatever the case may be. But I feel like the effort that we're picking up on is kind of them giving you your flowers, you know, like them paying you compliments, you know, lots of words of affirmation here. But it may be that they're all talk because they haven't met you yet. I really feel like we're picking up on the talking stage here, not the dating stage. And, you know, maybe you're playing hard to get. And maybe you like all of the attention and you're kind of worried, like, is this person just interested in the challenge? Like, if I agree to go out on a date with them, are they going to lose interest? You know, that kind of thing. Maybe you're a little bit suspicious of that. But for whatever reason, I feel like you two spend a lot of time talking to each other before we actually get to the first date. And I actually want to pull some extra cards for you all because I feel like we need more information. You know what? Actually, let's use the Romantic Tarot. I think that's what this deck is called. What will dating group 2's future spouse be like? I just want to get a little bit more info. That's too many cards. Oh, my hand slipped. So we got the Queen of Wands. Queen of Wands, and then the King of Swords. Yeah, okay, this still is very much in alignment with like what we've been kind of picking up on here. So with the King of Swords, your future spouse could be an air sign, so a Libra, Aquarius, or Gemini. If you are asking about someone who's in a more masculine energy, I do think that the way that they're pursuing you, this person, the King of Swords, is your future spouse, regardless of whether you're asking about a man or a woman, because I do feel like they approach you. I feel like they are, you know, the first person sending a message on a dating app. They are the first person to match with you. They are the first person to reach out or DM you on Instagram. I don't know. I do feel like you meet online. You may meet through mutual friends, but that would still be like, hey, can you give me so-and-so's number? I want to text them. Or can you set up a coffee date or something? But I definitely feel like, because air sign energy is very much mental, and it deals a lot with communication. And so I definitely feel like they use their words, you know? They are a person who communicates really well, and they're good with their words, and they're charming, and, you know, they're very seductive with their compliments. And, you know, I think that they're really good at playing to your ego. And if you're coming through in the Queen of Wands, Leo, Aries, Sagittarius, if you're coming through in this fire sign energy, you don't have to be a fire sign, but if we're talking about the dynamic here, this is the dynamic. You like someone to play to your ego, you know? Like, you are confident, but somebody's got to feed that fire, you know? Like, and I'm saying that as a Leo myself, we're confident, but you got to feed the fire, you know? We're generous, we give off warmth, we're fire signs, but you got to keep feeding the fire to keep getting the warmth, you know? And so with the Queen of Wands here, you know, I think you're like rolling your eyes like, you know, they sent me another message telling me how cute I am, whatever. And you're rolling your eyes, but I think you really love it. I think you love the attention. You're saying you don't love it, but you love the attention. Yeah, I think you're very enamored with them. You just don't want to admit it because you have your pride, and you don't want to admit how quickly you are falling for this person. I do feel like we have the Six of Wands, and we also have the Three of Wands here. You may, especially with the way it's depicted on this Three of Wands here, you may have a lot of options, you know, and maybe that's why you're stalling, maybe you're second guessing, you know, because you're getting a lot of attention from different people. And, you know, I don't want to hear, oh, I've been single my whole life, no one's ever given me any attention. Listen, I felt the same way until I got on a dating app. Like, no one ever approaches me in my day-to-day life. And then I got on a dating app and I got all of these messages and matches, and I was like, what? What? I mean, you may be one of those people that has like a resting witch face, and you seem intimidating or you seem unapproachable. So if you're at a bar or a club or the grocery store, bookstore, coffee shop, whatever, out in your day-to-day life, maybe people don't approach you because you seem scary even though you're nice, you know, and you seem like you don't want to be bothered. But, you know, if you get into a situation where it's socially acceptable, like a dating app is socially acceptable to, you know, message someone and say like, hey, want to get to know you better, whatever. Yeah, I mean, that's what you're meant to do on a dating app. So I really do feel like you could be meeting your future spouse through a dating app. But anyway, you are very attractive during this time. Whether you realize it or not, whether you're aware that you have options or not, you do. And so, you know, I feel like you're kind of just enjoying the attention. I think you're enjoying the flattery. And yeah, I think that you really appreciate the compliments that your future spouse is giving you, and you like the attention and you like feeling special, and there's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. And with the Six of Wands here, I mean, they are, I think, looking at you like you're a challenge, but I think it's because you're playing hard to get a little bit. And I think that when they do get to take you out on that first date, they're gonna feel like a winner. They're gonna feel like, yay, I finally got them to agree to go out on a date with me. And maybe if you meet them online, you have hesitancies about meeting someone in person because of the safety issue, or, you know, if it is long distance, maybe you have reservations about even doing long distance, or, you know, is it even going to work out with the distance? You know, long distance relationships are hard. And they're hard. No matter how compatible you are with someone, they're hard. And so that could also be why there is this hesitancy with you. But I think once you actually get out on the date together, oh man, I think you're going to feel like a queen or a king. You're going to feel like royalty. I feel like, yeah, they just make you feel like you're on a pedestal. They just make you feel so special. And it's the way that they talk to you. It's the way that they give you their undivided attention. It's the way that they listen to you. I think it's like intoxicating. They make you feel like the most gorgeous person in the room. They make you feel like the smartest person in the room, the funniest person in the room. They just have this way about them that makes you feel important, that makes you feel special. With this She Who Forgives card, remorse, guilt, and forgiveness, this is how they are perceiving you when they're approaching you. They see you as someone who has been hurt before. They see you as someone who's a bit prickly. They see you as someone who is a bit difficult to get to know. Now, they don't see you as bitter because it says She Who Forgives. They just see you as someone who has been through something. And maybe they don't know what it is. Maybe you haven't talked to them about it, but they just kind of sense this is someone. And I do think, you know, air signs can be, they're not intuitive the way water signs are, but they're smart. They're smart. I think they can be perceptive. They're smart. And so I think they pick up on just this idea that you've been hurt before. And there's some things that you've had to let go of. And so maybe they need to work a little bit harder to help you feel comfortable. And with this Advocate card, inspires you to put compassion into action. This card here is representing the archetype that best sort of signifies your future spouse's energy when they're approaching you. And so with the Advocate card, I do feel like they're advocating for themselves. Like they're trying to convince you, like, hey, this is why you should give me a chance. This is why I'm different than all the others, kind of thing. This is why you should go for me. You know, they're like stating their case, kind of thing. But also, I think that as the connection develops, they feel so protective over you. I think that it just hurts their heart that you have dealt with some of the things you have dealt with in the past. And they want to show you a relationship where you don't have to worry, where you don't have to have fear, where you don't have to have these trust issues. You know, they really want to, I think that they're not the most naturally nurturing person. You know, I think that, you know, sometimes because they're so smart, they can be a little bit sarcastic, or they can have a biting kind of sense of humor. You know, it's very quick-witted, or like a dry sense of humor. And they can be self-deprecating, and they kind of look at other people like you should be able to laugh at yourself too. But I think with you, it's like they handle you with kid gloves. Like they see you as, it's not that they see you as someone who's fragile, but they see you as someone who could be fragile, who maybe should be fragile. And it's kind of like they're in awe of your strength, that you have been able to forgive and move on from the things you have forgiven and moved on from. But they also think no one should have to be that strong. You shouldn't have had to deal with it to begin with. And so there's just this energy of like, I want to protect you. And sometimes that's hard. Sometimes that's really, really hard. I'm sorry to use a personal example, but just to give context, my husband and I had got into a fight because there was a situation where he wanted to protect me. He wanted to speak up for me. He wanted to advocate for me. And I'm the type of person where, you know, some things I don't think are worth giving energy to. If someone is lying about me, gossiping about me, I just don't think that's worth my energy. If they want to say really disparaging things about me that aren't true, and I know in my heart that they're not true, karma will do what karma needs to do. I don't want to get into an argument with someone about something that they should know is a lie. Objectively speaking, you have lied about something. This isn't my perception versus your perception. If you just objectively lie, or you break a boundary, you know, you violate my privacy in such a deep way. You share something that is very like personal to me. Why should I have to be the one to tell you that's wrong? You know it's wrong. What is there to argue about? You know that it's wrong. And it's just not worth the energy. I see you for who you are. I'm not bitter about it. It makes me think of this. I'm sorry, I'm jumping around a little bit. It makes me think of this video I saw on Nene Leak's channel, and she was talking, she's a Sagittarius, and I think because I'm a Leo and we're both fire signs, I get this. And you probably get it too if you're that Queen of Wands. It's not a sense of like, I can never speak to you again, or I'm holding a grudge, or anything like that. It's that I'm going to leave you where you're at. I can have a civil conversation with you, sure. I can wave to you, say hi to you on the street, whatever. If our paths ever cross again, I'm not going to carry hate in my heart because I can't. I don't want to. But I know who you are, and I know that what we had will never be again because of your actions. The dynamic can never be the same. Once some things are broken, once some lines are crossed, You can't take it back. Am I holding a grudge? Do I hate you? No. But I can't be with you the same way that I was before. So I got to leave you where you're at. And, and she was talking about her friendship with Cynthia on Real Housewives of Atlanta and all that. But that's how I felt. And, he was like, no, this cannot stand. I have to say something. This cannot stand. This is not okay. And he was looking at me like, why aren't you defending yourself? Why aren't you saying something? I'm going to say something. If you're not going to say something, I'm going to say something. And he just felt like he had to be, protective. And he couldn't understand why I didn't see that point of view. And I couldn't understand why he couldn't see mine. And it's not that he was wrong or I was wrong or anything. It's just a different perspective. And so I feel like your future spouse, and maybe it's because my husband's an air sign. And your person's coming through as the King of Swords. But it's that energy of like, I'm not saying that you need protecting. I'm not saying that you need me to step in like this, but I want to because it's what's right. And I think air signs are kind of like that sometimes. I think water signs tend to see shades of gray more. And I think fire signs do too. But I think earth and air signs have a very kind of clear idea. This is what's wrong. This is what's right. This is the moral standard. And if something violates that moral standard, something has to be said. For air signs, something has to be said. For earth signs, I think it's more of something has to be done. A price should be paid here. But I think that will come up. And I know we're getting messages beyond how they will approach you, but I think that will come up. I think that there will be situations where maybe people from your past pop up, and I think your future spouse is going to have a really hard time biting their tongue and not advocating for you, not speaking up for you. They want to protect you. And again, it's not like you're weak, you're fragile, you need me. It's more of, I want to stand beside you. I want to advocate for you because you're my person. And I feel like that's part of my responsibility as your partner, to protect you. Just as you protect me. We protect each other. We advocate for each other. I think this is a marriage. Again, I apologize that I'm expanding here, but I think this is a marriage where you really have each other's back. You have each other's back. No matter what. We're not going to argue in public. If we disagree, we'll handle it at home. But if anyone says a bad word against you, I don't care if you're right or wrong. I want to protect you. I want to stand up for you. And we can discuss it whatever in private. But I want to protect you. I want to protect us. I want to protect what we have, what we will share. And they'll feel the same way. If you have children, they'll feel the same way about your kids. Fiercely protective. We have compassion and wisdom. These two cards here are representing what they will love and appreciate about you the most, when you're in that getting to know you stage. And I think this is very much in alignment with, kind of what we've been talking about here. With that She Who Forgives card, if you have had situations where you have had to forgive, even situations where you had to forgive your past self because of what you tolerated or, some of the choices that you made, you still gain so much wisdom from every instance that you had to go through that process. You gain so much wisdom. There takes strength in forgiving. It's so easy to hold a grudge. Strength is in forgiveness, acceptance, moving on, letting go. That takes strength. It's so hard. It's not easy. But we do it for ourselves because we deserve better than carrying around hate and resentment and hurt in our hearts. We don't deserve that emotional baggage. And I think that's sometimes, you probably already know this group too, but I think sometimes people miss that. If you're sitting around feeling anger and resentment towards somebody, and you're carrying that, and you're carrying that, and you're carrying that, that person who hurt you has probably moved on so much faster. They don't care about you. They didn't care about you when they hurt you. They don't care about you now. They're out there smiling and dancing, acting like karma's not coming for them. They don't care. So why are you sitting around caring about them? They don't care about you. They didn't care about you when they hurt you. Give yourself the freedom of forgiveness. Karma does what karma needs to do. And again, I think you know that. And with compassion here, I think that you're such a special soul. I think that even when someone hurts you, you still can express compassion. You can still say, it's sort of like a this and that can be true kind of thing. And I mean, I feel this way, like I can recognize ways in which my mom has hurt me, but I can also recognize part of that pattern has to do with the fact that my mom was raised by someone who hurt her. And a lot of the way that she treated me as a child had a lot to do with how her mom raised her, my grandmother. And so at a certain point, someone has to break that cycle. And so like this and that can both be true. I can recognize my mom hurt me and I didn't deserve that, but I can also recognize my mom is a hurt person. And my mom experienced hurt. And my mom had a difficult childhood. But again, someone has to break that cycle. So I'm not going to treat, my child like that. We're breaking this cycle. It's not going to be perpetuated anymore. Someone has to forgive. Someone has to forgive. And I think you get that. And that's why you're able to be so wise and why you're able to move on and why you're still able to have this capacity to love because you're not carrying around this grudge. And I think your future spouse has a lot of respect for that. And I think that they really love how you care about people, how you care about the environment, how you care about animals, how you care. You're a good person. And that's not always easy to find in a world where society tells us to be self-serving. And I think you're very nurturing. And I think you're the type of person where people come to you for advice. I think you're very sage. I think you are able to give people practical, good advice, but you're also able to hold emotional space. And I think your future spouse really loves that about you. It may be in that talking stage where they come to you and say, I had a really hard day at work. And you're like, tell me more about that. And then they open up to you about why work was so hard. And I think that you're a good listening ear. But you also help people. So you do both. It's hard to do both without sounding like you're telling someone what to do. But you're able to be a source of comfort, but also give practical advice. I mean, you're really good at that. And I also feel like if your future spouse starts to open up to you about deeper things, they're really going to appreciate how you don't judge them. That's the worst thing in the world. When you open up to somebody about something deep and personal to you, something that cuts you to your core, and they judge you for it, and they have never been through even an ounce of what you have been through. It's something that they just haven't experienced, and they still judge you for it. That's the worst. I remember a lady I used to work with. She ended up being a good friend of mine, but she had been through, I think, like 5 miscarriages. And she was open about it. She talked about it pretty freely because at that point she had had 2 healthy children. And so, I think that she had went through her grieving process and all of that. But someone said to her, like another one of our coworkers said to her, I can't even imagine why you would even keep trying. Why, like, I can't believe you have 2 kids. I would have given up. I wouldn't have kept putting I think her words were something to the effect of, I wouldn't have kept putting my marriage through that, as if it was all her decision, as if it was mean of her to do that to her husband. It was such a messed up thing to say. Instead of just saying, wow, that's amazing. I'm so happy for you that you were finally able to have your 2 kids. Like, congratulations. That's incredible. You're so strong. I mean, anything else, or just be quiet if you don't have anything kind to say. But obviously, family planning, that's a discussion between her and her spouse, Maybe her husband wanted to keep trying. They didn't want to give up. You don't know the dynamic. You don't know the conversation that happened. It was just so disrespectful. So, yeah, I just feel like you're someone who knows. I mean, you may work as a therapist or a counselor, but I feel like if you don't, those would be good job options for you because you have a knack for it. Okay, now we have leadership, lead, teach, and self-govern. We have twin flame, mirroring self, soul connection. We have travel, adventures, new places and experiences. And we have hope, don't lose faith, stay positive, and truce, ceasefire, resolve, and prosperity. Okay. I will say with this twin flame card, I'm going to be honest with y'all. I don't know much about twin flames. That's not a term I use. But if you're into twin flames, if you're happy this is your twin flame, great. If you want to disregard that message, disregard that message. But I do think this is going to be an intense and fiery and quite passionate connection, because I think if you think about air and fire, air makes fire bigger. So it makes sense that this would be a really passionate, deep love between you two. Now with travel here, I think this could very well be confirming this is long distance. If you were resonating with that message, if that made sense to you, this could be long distance in the beginning. I also feel like this could be signifying that when you two are dating, you're going to do like weekend getaways together. You're going to plan short like day trips together, have dates where you don't do the typical like dinner and movie. Maybe you do something more exciting, more off the wall, something a little bit more adventurous than that. And with the hope card, I feel like this is spirit just coming forward and saying, hey, have hope that this is going to happen for you. Divine timing. Because with that she who forgives card, maybe you're at a point to where you're starting to wonder, am I ever going to get married? Am I ever going to meet my person? With this truce card, I feel like y'all banter back and forth a lot. I feel like y'all have a really nice rapport. You like to joke around with each other. I could see that dynamic, happening between a fire and an air sign. And that's why I love air signs. My moon's in Gemini, but I love air signs for that because they're so fun to talk to. They aren't people who take themselves too seriously. Generally speaking, you always have to look at someone's full birth chart, but typically speaking, sorry, I got interrupted, y'all. Typically speaking, though, they don't take themselves too seriously, and that's why they tend to make good comedians. They can laugh at themselves, and they can find humor in dark situations, and they don't take life too seriously. They, have that kind of bounce back, kind of energy. Air signs don't wallow in stuff, And so, yeah, I think that they just find humor in a lot of things. And I think you're going to like that. You're going to like the banter. You're going to like the lighthearted energy. I think if you have been through a lot in the past, with relationships, even if it was in friendships or family members, it just makes it so nice that when you're getting to know someone, there's a lighthearted energy and things don't feel too heavy and you can kind of ease into it. And you may start off, having or developing a friendship with this person. And with leadership here, I do think that And this is very much representing how they will take the reins. They will be the one to push this forward. They will be the one, like I said, who is chasing you. Okay, they are pursuing you. And you are, I think, slowly being more receptive to it. Because I think there's some hesitancy there, probably because it's long distance, or because you're meeting them online, or because of your past. You know, we named all that stuff. But yeah, I definitely feel like it's a process, it's a journey, you know, all that good stuff. But I think that, yeah, this is a really cool, really fun, lighthearted dynamic between you two in the beginning. All right, that concludes your reading. I hope it resonated. I hope it brought you some comfort. Please consider liking, commenting, sharing, or subscribing. Hitting the notification bell lets you know whenever I upload. The easiest way to support the channel is to watch the ads. I know they can probably be a little bit annoying, but you can always mute them and just have them on in the background. So I really appreciate anyone who does that as well. I also want to say a huge thank you to everyone who has watched the ads already, been a regular viewer, donated on Venmo, tipped with SuperThanks, or just commented or liked a video. It means the world to me and to Miss Gracie, of course. I'm wishing everyone the best as always. Please take care, and I hope to see you in my next reading. Group 3, welcome to your reading. Like I was telling the other two groups, it's raining pretty heavily here today and it's just extra chilly. Normally I turn the heat off while I'm filming so there's less background noise. And the dogs also like to be in the room with me when it's raining like this because, I don't know, they're needy and they get scared of the storm. So if you hear more background noise, I'm so sorry about that. Just bear with me. So starting off with your tarot here, we have the Lovers. Beautiful card to start off your reading here. Literally shows a couple here at their wedding. But anyway, we have the 10 of Pentacles, and then we also have the 6 of Swords here. Okay. Your future spouse is moving towards you. They're approaching you like slow and steady. Slow and steady. You know, group 2's future spouse was like coming in hot. I think that was like the first thing I said to them. And then group 1 was like a traditional courtship. I think that for you all, your future spouse is approaching, dating you, getting to know you, kind of just step by step. You know, I think they're being very methodical about it. They're being very, I don't think that they're following some sort of traditional timeline like group 1's future spouse was. You know, some of those like arbitrary rules for dating, like, oh, you can't call someone after the first date until 3 days have passed, or, things like that. I think your future spouse has more of an awareness of you and what you like and what you're comfortable with, and they're kind of sort of tailoring their approach to that. And so I do think you've been quite open with them. I think that you have been open with them about what your needs are and what you've been through and how you feel about dating. And so it's going to be, there's a lot of you watching. But how your future spouse approaches you is going to be very personal to your comfort zone. And that's the phrase that's coming up, or the term that's coming up most for me as I'm tapping into the energy of your cards, is your comfort zone. So I think that honestly, at the time that you meet your future spouse, with the Six of Swords being here, you've encountered some kind of difficulty. For some reason, there's some kind of hard time that you're going through. This doesn't have to be a negative thing. I remember, and just to give context, I remember when I met my husband, I had just started a new job. And when you start a new job, there's a lot of anxiety and uncertainty because you're like, is this going to work for me? Is the job that they described in the interview actually how the job is? Because y'all know they like to lie and present things a certain way. And then you get in there and you start training and you're like, oh, this is the situation. Sometimes employers, just like employees applying for jobs, like to fluff up their resume or something. Sometimes employers can make the workplace dynamic or the actual job description sound very different to how it actually is. And so, I was learning a whole different, kind of, I guess, way of doing hospice. It was totally different than my previous hospice company. And, I was new to the area. I was trying to figure out the area. I had just moved into my apartment. Like, things were so new. And I was trying to navigate, a lot of changes all at once. And so I was just overwhelmed, I was stressed. And I think it could be something like that. It's not nothing negative necessarily. And just because we're overwhelmed or we're stressed or we're dealing with stuff doesn't mean it's negative. Sometimes even positive changes, I always say this, still require an adjustment. And so don't think I'm saying your life is terrible, when you meet your future spouse, but I think you're figuring some stuff out. I think some things in your life are up in the air. I think there's some uncertainty there. And I feel like your future spouse kind of comes in with this really beautiful, stabilizing energy. And it's like, you know what? I got things that are changing. I got things that are up in the air, things I have to figure out. But you are like my rock. I think that that's something you're going to appreciate even when you're first getting to know your future spouse, is what a stabilizing force they are. There's someone that keeps calm under pressure. There's someone who is calm, cool, and collected. Like, they are someone that I think if you tend to be high strung or you tend to get anxious, they can just bring you back down to earth. They have a very grounding kind of energy. I think that you're really going to appreciate. With the 10 of Pentacles, I do think that your future spouse definitely has, some financial stability. It's a little bit different from group one. Group one had this kind of energy where their future spouse was kind of treating them to really expensive dates, taking them to really nice places, buying them nice gifts, just spending a lot of money. With you all, it feels more intentional. It feels more thoughtful. Again, it feels very specific and tailored to you. And so I feel like it must be that you two are at least familiar with each other, or your friends first before they romantically approach you, because, or maybe you're just an open book, I don't know, but it feels like they have to have some sort of knowledge about you prior to them romantically approaching you. they must have some kind of insider knowledge, or you guys share a mutual friend who gives them the tea. I don't know, but they seem to know you enough to know how to spend money intentionally towards you. And what I mean by that is, I'll give another example, pardon the example. My husband, he was a little bit sneaky with this. It was a little bit strategic, but he wanted me to hang out with him at his house. And, you know, he wanted me to feel like comfortable being over here, and he wanted me to spend time over here. And so he had asked me, like, what are your favorite snacks? Like, what do you like to eat? What kind of coffee? You know, those kind of things. And so, you know, he bought those things for me. And so, and that was very, like, you know, it was very sweet. And he bought things for my cat. And so, you know, because we weren't far away from each other, but it was a drive. And so he wanted me to hang out here instead of him having to always come see me. And, you know, obviously he just wanted me to feel like this home was my home too. And it, you know, that's what it kind of reminds me of. It was like, I'm not spending money on you in the way that group one's future spouse was, where it's like, I'm going to take you to this really expensive restaurant because it's a really expensive restaurant. You know, it's more of like, I want to take you here. I want to buy you these things because they're personally meaningful to you. Even if it's buying you your favorite snack, you know, it's personally meaningful to you. Or like, anyone who knows me knows that I love my cat. So if you buy something for my cat, that's an easy way to get my good graces, you know? So they must have some kind of insider knowledge about you and what you love and what you like, enough to intentionally, that's the word that keeps coming up, intentionally spend money on you. With the Lovers being here, I do feel like this is a situation where it's love at first sight, or there's soul recognition. Maybe you have that deja vu feeling of like, I've met you somewhere before. But I also feel like you two could start off as friends, which honestly still makes sense to me, because just because you're feeling these romantic feelings doesn't mean you necessarily act upon them. And if you have a friendship with somebody, or it develops as a friendship first, you may kind of feel like, do I want to mess up the friendship? This person really matters to me, kind of thing. Because we also have to remember the Lovers can represent a choice, a decision that has to be made. And so I think even if you two are romantic soulmates, there's still this energy of like, even if you took that out of it, even if you took away like the soul recognition, the past lives we've shared together, even if you took that away, I would still choose you. And I think that's really beautiful. And, you know, just because someone shares a soulmate level connection with somebody doesn't mean it necessarily lasts. And so I like to see the Lovers here, because it's like, yeah, we feel those feelings, but also I would choose you again and again and again. And I think that's really beautiful. I also think with the Lovers here, this is indicating that, again, I think your future spouse really tries to cater to you. And I think they're very direct about it. You know, I think that they don't mind that they're not surprising you a lot. I think that they're like, where would you like to eat? What would you like to do? They ask your opinion a lot when they're planning dates, or when they really kind of like tailor their way of romantically approaching you based upon what you like. They'll get feedback. And I've had people laugh at me because I do this when I'm on dates. Like, I'll be like, so how was that for you? Like, okay, let's sort of like debrief the date now. How was that? You know, because like, I want to know, did you have a good time? You're not going to hurt my feelings if you didn't. You know, like, if it's not meant to be, it's not meant to be. But I want to know, like, how'd you feel about that? And so, you know, I feel like they're quite direct about it, you know, like, what do you like? What do you like? And if you're not someone who's used to expressing what you want, I think quite honestly, it's going to be good for you. It's going to help you learn to be more assertive about your wants and needs and desires and your expectations. Because all of us, you know, want something different in love and dating and romance. All of us have different ideas about the pacing of things, or how things should develop, or what's appropriate, what's not appropriate, you know, all that stuff. All of us have different ideas. And so, are different ways we want to be romantically pursued. And so I think it's really, really awesome that they're just super direct about it. You know, they just ask you and then they act accordingly. You know, they want your feedback. They want to know how you feel. They give you a choice. Did you like when I did that? Did you not like when I did that? Do you want to go here? Do you want to go there? What do you think? Are they surprising you? No. But that's okay. That's okay, because I think it's better for you to be happy than to be surprised. Or at least that's how I would feel. All my type A's are going to love this dynamic. All right, we have she who radiates knowing, ambition, and confidence. This is how they're seeing you. When they are approaching you, this is how they see you. And so I think that, you know, you probably are comfortable, you know, with saying what you want. Or at least they are viewing you as you would be someone confident enough to assert yourself. And I think that they sort of just look at you like you're the sun. You know, like you're just radiating, you're just glowing. They love being in your energy. They love being in your company. And I think that's why they give you so much of a choice, or they ask you how you feel about things. What do you want to do? Because they could go on a date with you at the local dumpster or dump, whatever. They could go on a date with you at the city dump, and they would be as if the city only has one dumpster. I'm sorry, y'all. I had to get up early this morning for my doctor's appointment, and I think it's showing that I didn't get enough sleep today. But yeah, I feel like they don't care. They just love to be in your company. They love to be in your presence. They don't care what y'all do. They're just happy to be with you. And I think that they also kind of recognize that you're a smart cookie, group 3, and it would be so stupid, even if they wanted to, it would be so stupid to try to play a game with you or try to be manipulative in a way to win your affection. Like, it would just be so dumb and pointless because you would see right through it. So why even try to go that route? It would just be dumb. And with this victim card, prevents you from letting yourself be victimized or victimizing others. So this is representing the archetype that your future spouse is presenting with. And I know that may be confusing. You're like, a victim? What are you talking about? So let me explain. They are someone who is very comfortable expressing emotions. They're very comfortable with saying how they feel. They don't think that expressing emotions makes you weak. They don't think crying makes you weak. They don't think that being strong means you're the loudest person in the room, you're yelling. You know, they don't try to win an argument like that. And if you open up to them about any difficulties with your past, they're not going to view you as a victim. They're going to view you as a survivor. They aren't going to put you in this position of, because I think that's really hard sometimes, and I don't think people mean anything bad about it, but if you open up about any, hardship you've had in your life and people pity you, that can be hard, because expressing compassion is very different than pity. And I think you're someone who would hate to be pitied. And so I think that this is coming through to say your future spouse is totally comfortable with emotional expression. And whatever story you have, they can handle your story, and they're not going to victimize you, and they don't victimize themselves for what they've been through. They don't view themselves as a victim. They don't martyr themselves, because I think they've been through some stuff too. And that's why they have this sort of comfortability with emotional expression, because they've been through some stuff and they've had to process some stuff. They too themselves are a survivor. Okay, we have friendship and patience. I told y'all you're gonna be friends first. So these two cards are representing basically what they love most about you when they're getting to know you. But with the friendship card being here, it tells me before they even romantically approach you, yeah, y'all have a friendship. And they really value your friendship, and they think you're a great friend. And a lot of qualities go into being a great friend, right? Someone who is reliable, someone who is compassionate, someone who's kind, someone who, you know, all that good stuff. Someone that you share mutual interests with, someone that you love to talk to, all of that good stuff. And then with patience here, I think that they really, really love how you don't rush into stuff. They really like how you approach things. They really like, and it's funny because we've been talking about how they're going to be approaching you, but they like how you approach life. They like that you take your time. And you know, you may be feeling like you're behind in life in some ways. And you may feel bad about that if you're not as far along in life as you think that you should be. But from their perspective, they look at it like group 3 is really smart, because so many people make major life decisions when they're very young, or they rush into big decisions when they're young and they end up regretting it later. And an easy example of this would be if you get married when you're super young, and I'm not judging anybody, but it's just an example. If you get married when you're super young for all the wrong reasons, you know, because you think you should be, or your friends are getting married, or your partner's pressuring you, or your family's pressuring you, and then, or you think you can't do any better and you decide to settle, whatever the case. And then you end up getting a divorce later. Well, you would have been better off time-wise, financially, like just being single. Well, I say financially just because divorce is expensive, but I guess it depends upon who you marry. But anyway, so yeah, I think that they appreciate that about you. So don't feel like you're behind in life. Group 3, if you're resonating with that message, don't feel like you're behind in life. You're not. You are exactly where you're meant to be. Okay, we have consequence, change, flutter, and effect. So like the butterfly effect. We have universe, trust in the universe, divine timing. We have forgiveness, release negativity, good intentions. We have life partner, love of a lifetime, stable. We have caution, be careful, red flags, don't rush. And we have legacy, trust, inspire, and fulfill. Okay. Trust in the universe, divine timing. I definitely feel like Spirit is saying, this is going to happen when it's meant to happen. Don't worry about it. There's no need to feel like you need to be in a rush to find your person. It's going to happen when it's meant to happen. I know people get fed up of hearing that message, but it is what it is. And I would be doing a disservice to you if I looked at your cards and I said, oh, you're definitely going to meet your future spouse next month. How much would that break your heart if you didn't meet them next month? Like, oh my gosh, I had a tarot reading once. I was at the end of my rope. And I had a tarot reading once that told me everything was going to be better. And they gave me a specific date. And I was so just devastated when that date came and went. And I think it's because when you're really struggling, it's like anything I can hold on to, any scrap of hope you can give me, you know, don't give people false hope, you know, just don't do it. So yeah, it is a matter of divine timing. I'm sorry to have to give you that message, but it is. But you know, with divine timing, you can at least work on yourself and try to speed things up on your end. You know, you can't control what your future spouse is out there doing, but you can at least do your part to be prepared and ready for this, you know, connection. And, you know, maybe that is forgiveness for you. Maybe you've got some negativity you need to release. This could also be speaking to the fact that your future spouse is working through that, because we got the victim card. So, I mean, they could have some people they need to forgive before they're ready to come into union with you. I mean, that may be what the holdup is. With caution here, I feel like y'all are just going to take your time with it. And you may be someone who is really quick to name flags. I dated someone and they got on my nerves so bad because they kept saying, even about themselves, they would say, oh, that's a green flag, that's a red flag, that's a beige flag or something. And I'm, as someone who has worked in the mental health professional field, and as someone who has, you know, their education in psychology and social work, people are not an accumulation of flags. Like, you can't break people into a pro-con list, because that's essentially what you're doing. Like, if you got to make a pro-con list, you are not the one for me. If you have to sit there and divide up every part of me into good or bad, I don't want you. You love me or you don't. You feel it or you don't. Stop making this into a checklist. You're never going to find someone who ticks all your boxes, and you're never going to be able to, and I say tick all your boxes as in the sense of, like, he was so specific. Like, you couldn't have the thermostat on a certain degree level or you weren't the one. I mean, we had the same preferences when it came to temperature, but I was like, is he serious right now? You're going to meet the love of your life. You're going to meet someone who's so perfect, wonderful, amazing for you. And you're going to cut them off because they want the thermostat at, like, I don't know, 76 and you want it at 74. Like, what? What? Get a blanket. Get an air conditioner. Get a fan. Like, what are you talking about? I don't know. Maybe my standards are too low. I don't know. But I was like, surely you can move past the thermostat. I wish I could remember what were some of his other conditions, because they were funny. I do remember, this one wasn't a funny condition, but I do remember he had such a problem with me praying. And I'm like, you wouldn't even know it. I just pray in my head. I don't kneel and get on my knees and do all that. Like, you would never, like, is that bothers you? It didn't bother him that I believed in God or that I'm into tarot and all of that, or at least he said it didn't. But it bothered him that I prayed. And that was so bizarre to me. It was so weird. It just felt very controlling, quite honestly. Like, you have a problem with what I'm thinking in my mind? Like, just so silly, so silly. I've gotten a little bit off track here, but with the caution card, I feel like y'all are just taking your time. You're taking your time, and I feel like part of that is because you do have that friendship and you don't want to mess up the friendship. And that happens. I mean, look at like Jim and Pam on The Office. They had a real friendship. And when someone's your go-to person, and I do think your future spouse becomes your go-to person, the idea of bringing romance into it is so scary, because you're like, if things don't work out, are we still going to be able to go back to being friends? I don't know. So it makes sense to me that you want to take things slow or move at a pace that's comfortable to you, because you care about that friendship. But I do feel like, life partner, I do think that this is not only your future spouse, but this is the person you're going to spend the rest of your life with. Because Not every marriage lasts. So the fact that you got the life partner card tells me this marriage will. And that's really beautiful. I really, really love that the consequence card is here. The butterfly effect card is here because I feel like your future spouse has such an understanding that everything they do, everything that they say has an impact on you. They recognize that you both are important to each other. And so there is no one that can hurt you as much as the people closest to you. And that's the risk when we open up our heart, when we love as deeply as we do, we give that person power to hurt us because they know the deepest parts of ourselves. We have allowed ourselves to be seen. We have allowed ourselves to be vulnerable, but we trust that the people that we love aren't going to use that power against us. We trust that if we open up to our person about something that happened that, touched us deeply, a wound that we have, they're not going to take the first opportunity that they get when you tick them off to throw it in your face, right? They're not going to disrespect you like that. Because then if they did, you would never trust them again. Or you would be really hesitant to open up to them again. Because it's like, are they going to use this against me later? Real love isn't about using vulnerability as ammunition. And so your future spouse is mindful of that. They are mindful that they matter a lot to you and you matter a lot to them. And everything they say and they do affects you because y'all are so close. Even when you're friends, you're so close. So they're very careful about what they say and what they do because they understand it has a consequence. And they want positive consequences in your connection, not negative ones. And I also think that they're mindful that we think about butterflies, we think about transformation. They're mindful that things are going to change. The dynamic is going to change when you move from friends to lovers. And when we have legacy here, I do feel like if you're wanting children, that could be something that happens for you all. I also feel like with legacy, this could potentially talk about, and we're getting beyond the scope of this reading, and it is what it is. If you want to start a business, you could create generational wealth. You could create a name for yourself in the community. Your family could be well known. You two could be, like a power couple kind of thing. Or, a very respectable family. And this could also speak to your future spouse comes from a family that has good standing in their community, or that has a family-run business that's very popular, that has a legacy to it. Or that, how some families, like everyone in the family is a doctor, everyone in the family is a lawyer, everyone in the family is in the military. Could be something like that too. That's a more specific message, but take what resonates. Okay, now we're gonna get 3 potential zodiac signs that could be significant in your future spouse's birth chart. Group 3, zodiac sign, future spouse. We have Virgo. That makes a lot of sense to me because Virgos are very detail oriented and it's earth sign energy. So it would be, more slow moving, more cautious. We have Leo here. Leos have a big heart, and I'm going to hype up my sign. Leos have a big heart. We're super generous. We're really warm. And I think we make really good friends. And so I could definitely see that energy being here. I also think Leos and fire signs in general tend to have a forgiving heart. And we definitely would not victimize ourselves, no. Our pride will not allow us to do that. So that message about being a survivor over a victim really makes a lot of sense. And I also feel like with Leo here, Leo is also related to creativity. And so I definitely feel like if you are resonating with that message about starting a business, because Leo has leadership potential too. So I feel like your future partner would make a great partner in business as well, not just in love and marriage. If you're into that, if you are resonating with that message. Okay, and now we have Pisces energy. So we also have water sign energy. You know, I feel like this speaks to how intuitive your future spouse is and how they have this emotional intelligence and awareness, and yeah, their capacity to really have compassion for you. And I think just in general, with Pisces and Leo energy together, they have a really big heart. They really do. And I like to see that balance, because if we're bringing in Virgo energy, and not to say your future spouse has all of these signs, they may just have one, but if we're looking at this as a whole picture, Virgo energy can sometimes be a bit critical. So I like to see it softened by Pisces and Leo. All right, that concludes your reading. I hope it resonated. I hope it brought you some comfort. Please consider liking, commenting, sharing, or subscribing. Hitting the notification bell lets you know whenever I upload. The easiest way to support the channel is to watch the ads. I know they can probably be a little bit annoying, but you can always mute them and just have them on in the background. So I really appreciate anyone who does that as well. I also want to say a huge thank you to everyone who has watched the ads already, been a regular viewer, donated on Venmo, tipped with SuperThanks, or just commented or liked a video. It means the world to me and to Miss Gracie, of course. I'm wishing everyone the best as always. Please take care, and I hope to see you in my next reading.